Hey, I wanted to make one more video about some design principles, just so you have a little more support on what to avoid, what to try to do, what we're looking for on Friday in terms of movement, balance, value, all those kinds of things. The bottom line is you always want to have a range of value, range of sizes, commonality among shapes, repetition, and an open composition where things flow naturally. You don't want to ever put something smack dab in the middle. You never want to have things be symmetrical unless you're intentionally using that balance system. And that even within that system, it involves exact measurements. And if you're going that direction, you have to do it in a specific way. You can't just sort of aim for it. And it also has to have all these elements of repetition. Most designs you'll find online are not terribly good. There's some good ones, but there's some pretty problematic ones. And on my little demo before for the analogous that I posted on there, that was non-objective. So in other words, it was just shapes and stuff. Now, a lot of you want to use something quote unquote real. It's not going to be real because you're not blending and you're not going to be making a rendition of anything, but it'll be more of a silhouette, for example, flat silhouette. But there's been a lot of question about what to go about doing. In my tenure at the college, I've noticed a pattern of what people like, of what students tend to gravitate towards, and what compositions tend to become a problem in relation to that. Students have generally gravitated towards cartoons, anime, cartoon characters, superheroes, symbols, things like that. So we want to make sure that if you're using that or any subject like an oceanscape or a palm tree or whatever, a house, whatever it is that you're putting in there, that we're not focused on a something, like a one thing. We can't just let that one thing run the show. It detracts from the design. It's not like a sticker. It's not like a graphic that just comes at you from the middle. That has its own role. But in this case, we want to do something different. So I want to show you some examples of what not to do. It could inspire you to create your design, but you don't want to duplicate it, and you got to remember we can't use lines, so you're not going to be able to do little interior linear things anyway, so you're not going to make it look like whatever it is you want to do. All right, this is the most common thing. Usually it's a cartoon, usually it's really cute and usually it's heavily outlined. There's no variation in the outline. It's called a mechanical line. It's used the least in drawing and painting, and it's used the most in cartoons, logos, anything that's supposed to be flat and exaggerated. It's kind of like that whole thing where eyes are small in real life, but they're always made huge in cartoon for effect, or movies or whatever, animated films. But aside from all that, this line is thick and it's the same all the way around, mechanical cartoon. That's fine, but you can't use a line in your picture. And all these interior lines you can't do on the project. You can't use a little round brush and make lines. However, you can make shapes. You can make things shapes. And you can have shapes overlapping in such a way that this appears to be a line. For example, if this were all yellow and it butted up against a purple in your complementary scheme, you wouldn't see the line, but you would see this shape. So by using a value behind here, this light would pop up. But the main thing I wanted to show you was the problem with this. First of all, there's only one. Second of all, it's smack dab in the middle. And unless you're specifically doing symmetry and measuring each quarter and tracing and transferring and duplicating 4 times, it's not going to be, or flip side on this one, it's not going to be accurate anyway. So what we want to do is move this over and then create other elements that pick up these specific moments in here. Now, the other thing that's a problem is it's staring at you. Cartoons are already flat, so if it's staring at you, that may not be the right one to choose. At least if you pick another one, see how this one, she's turned to the side slightly, and this arm goes back and this one forward. It makes for a better silhouette. But I wanted to show you this too, because this one has a serious problem. Not just does it have the problems of the other one of being one pointed in the middle, heavy outline that you can't use anyway. You can't do any of these lines or any of these. You have to make this one silhouette shape flat. But the background has nothing to do with the foreground. It's simply there to show that whole superhero thing, like bam, kind of that moment. But in terms of design, you've got geometric lines emanating out, and this whole thing is organic, with that exception, which is sort of out of kilter too. So no matter how much you love a character, no matter how cool it is in one context, it might not work for this project. So watch out for backgrounds that don't match foregrounds. They're like disjointed. They don't go together. And watch out for anything that's smack dab in the middle with a heavy line. You can't do details with line on this particular project. If you want to do something similar, save it for later and we'll doctor it up so it works. This is another example of something that has a real problem right here. These shapes, these weird like flag type linear shapes, have nothing to do with this picture. This is an organic image. The only geometric line is there, and that's just not enough to get that to make sense or relate to that. Again, this is a different subject, but look, smack dab in the middle. All this is not cool. So this would be shifted over, repeated, elements of it transferred to your design. And I'm gonna use this one, then I'll do another one. First of all, this is horizontal, so I'm just gonna quickly use this just as an idea. I'm like, okay, this is my source. You may have something that's your source, the shape of a car, whatever. Most people like faces, eyes, palm trees, cacti, sunsets, fire, flames. We've had balloons, hot air balloons. We've had fruits and vegetables. We've had still lifes. We've had a lot of cartoons, and so that's fine, but just make sure it's something where you have shapes and not lines. Now luckily this one doesn't have lines, so that's why I'm going with this one first. So based on this, I'm going to start getting some ideas for this. I could, let's say I'm doing this for my complimentary one. So what happened to my pencil? Okay, I'll just use one of these. So let's say I want to do limes, cut open citrus limes, and this is going to be my source. I'm not copying this. I'm pulling out elements of it. First of all, I don't want it in the middle. I don't want it straight up, so I'm going to twist it. So I'm going to do some sketch of perhaps this shape. And I've got some interesting half circles there. And I've got some berries here. So if I wanted it to look like this, at least put it on the side and render it that way. And then if you want to do something stimulated by this, you could have this side off on the other side, because that part of this design is actually working. But now we get into your invention. You don't want to just be a copycat. You want to invent it to make it yours. Now what's cool about this is these circles do pick up on this oval, but circles and ovals are a little different. These are kind of 4 ovals. Those do come to a point, but we've got 4 basic ovals and then these circular things. So because I have these small circular things, while I'm using this as a reference, I may want to put a large circular thing. That pulls it open and brings these little ones into context of this larger space. And then at that point you might just ditch this. You know, you have to decide how committed are you to making us know what it is. And if you are, be really careful how you render it. This class, you're not expected to know how to draw, but if you have had drawing, you can incorporate some of that in here. But okay, so I'm going to pretend I'm doing blue and orange for this. Let me put a leaf here just to match. So basically, I took this, drew it sideways, drew this other part this way as if this coming here and going there, and now I'm coming up with a design. And you can see by having this source, it helps me create this image. If you're struggling to just invent something in an abstract way and you're not used to doing that, it's really important you go online, you know, go on Pinterest, Google any kind of image. Usually when you Google design, you just get patterns. But if there's something you really like, you can use that as a guide, or more than one thing. So I'm taking a look over here, but I'm not pretending like I'm in a painting class or a drawing class. I'm looking at this as potential for using this image as my complementary design. Now I'm going to do blue-orange on this one. So I'm using colored pencil. And you want to decide not so much how it falls here, but how it falls here. If you put it here, you got to put blue somewhere else. So I'm going to put it here. And it pulls my eye to there. And since this one's in the back, I'm going to make this one a darker blue, and I'll add white to that one, or I'll switch that to my orange. But I don't think I need to, because I've got blue, 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 and then I got to pick where else I want a blue. Now this is light and dark here, so I could do a blue here. Since complementaries are only two colors, sometimes on that one you really kind of feel like you have to use white to mix in, especially if one of your hues is dark. The bottom of the wheel is the darkest, so those are opportunities to add white. So I can just pretend this will be blue plus white, this will be blue plus less white, this will be pure blue. So you can use different tints, which is adding white, different amounts of white to each hue. That gives it different hues because it has different values. So let's say I make this pure blue. This is pure blue with a touch of white. This is pure blue with more white. You can extend your adding white very, very much as long as there's a fleck of the color in it. You don't want to completely go white. And then just to flip this temperature thing, because usually warm things come forward and cool go back, and we'll go over this later. There's a whole project involving that. But maybe I'll do orange in the back just to kind of break it up. And by filling the negative space, you're always getting a sense of what's going on back there. This area is floating a little. So I'm going to look at my source. What in here can I use? Definitely not that. That has no belonging. But there's some other decent stuff. Sort of a butterfly shape. I think here I'll just add one more circle. It never hurts to go back to the basic circles. Now you might be into the thorns. You could bring in thorns into this. So this whole thing is connected. Instead of you just copying it or tracing it and, you know, filling it in, it gives you an opportunity to really grow. And in this class you can trace. You can put it on Photoshop and print it, whatever. This is not a drawing class, but you do need to have balanced systems. And if you just copy something that isn't balanced, not only does it not work, but then you're not inventing your own space. It's more like a starting point. If you do diagonals, you're going to create a very playful energy. If you do very flat, horizontal, vertical, you're going to create a very serious energy. So it's really totally up to you, but it's strategic. And it's just what it feels like. But you don't want to do that little this too narrow here, because you can't use lines. So it would have to be a shape to represent. I mean, you have those tiny brushes. You can definitely make a wide line that acts as a shape. But you just can't do little lines. You certainly can't do things to make it look like what it is on the inside. So that could be my complementary. Then I would post that on there. You could get a little more elaborate, but this is just a, you know, a thumbnail. So my colors are orange and blue. So I would post this now on the internet, on the discussion board. And now that I know I can make these videos you know, I can just put that as my discussion, as can you. You can say, okay, this is what I'm working on. What do you guys think? Instead of typing it in. Okay. So then this one, let's say, okay, I already did my analogous post. Now I'm going to post the complementary. Now I want to post, I'll do the primary. And I am going to use this as a reference. But keeping in mind, this whole situation is not good at all. That is not an element that I would be incorporating here. It has nothing to do with the foreground. I mean, if I didn't have this, this could be part of something. But this is just central. It draws your eye, and then you're stuck in no man's land. When something's in the middle, you go boom, and then lights out. I mean, there's nowhere to go. You're stuck. Now there's a little point here, but it's almost creating an awkward moment hitting the edge. This is completely random. This is completely random. You can't do any of these interior lines. So the only way to use this, there's no way with all the lines. In a lot of pictures you'll find it's all lines. The only way to use that is to use the silhouette and then to mimic shapes that are in there. You can't put this, but you can use this shape. You can't put this, but you can use this shape or make this larger as a shape. It won't match what you know the thing to be. If it's a character that you want to copy, save it for another project, because you're going to have to change it to fit this project expectations, and then it won't be how the character you want it to be. Like, you can't have that X, and maybe that X means something here, I don't know. But if you try to make that X thicker just so it fits the project, then maybe you're not comfortable doing that to the character. Now, it doesn't matter to me. You can make this really big, and then this could be a shape next to a hue, another color. So it ends up being shape on shape. And then you don't have this line here because you have another hue over here. So you don't have any lines at all on this. But this is now starting to interest me. It's reminding me of something, and I like circles. So I'm going to go over here and do something kind of fun. I'm going to, you know, I said you can extend these things if you want. What if I used this leaf from the other project or paper and then mimic the circle of this lady over here? I'm sorry, I don't know who it is, if it's identifiable, but it's just a round shape, perfectly round. In fact, you could do it with a compass. But it fits with this design and flows in. So I'm thinking maybe I'll integrate that. Wouldn't that be cool? So now I've solved one problem. She's to the side, and she's not smack dab, and the background's off limits. I'm going to repeat her here, and I'm going to just view this as abstract circles, because everything in life is a series of abstract shapes, especially with drawing and painting. It ends up being something, but really it's all abstract. That's the part you gotta break it down. So I'm gonna do a little one over here. And I'm gonna do primary triads, which is red, blue, and yellow. And maybe on this one I won't add white. Now the things that I noticed that was cool here is this shape, because it's leaf shape, and I have leaves over here. So this leaf could go into here and help me create that other large leaf shape that I see. That's sort of like the bottom half of the ball. And I could still, I don't want that cut off totally. Remember that if you cut to the edge, it's got to be a different triangle size. So, but let's say this. Oh, you know what it reminds me of is the teacups at Disney World, the spinning teacups. Totally, because it looks almost three-dimensional. So that inspired something else. Like, what if I had someone in the teacup and somebody else in the teacup, And then I either put, no, I'll put this person's closest because that's their head in the back, and this is like a child and a friend or whatever, and you're in the teacup spinning. So instead of me looking for a picture of a teacup, I just had a thought and I went with it. I'm going to do the same thing here, except this way. I'm going to do this part. And see, I can break this into two because I'm using 3 colors. Am I really at 20 minutes already? Oh, geez. I talk too much, man. I hope I'm not already there. All right, so then I can use this shape, okay? The smiley mouth can be an important thing. This, look at this. Now I'm seeing that this, whoever designed this, is starting to have some skills, because I see this shape is this shape. I see repetition here. I see half circles here. I'm starting to get it in here, but not out here, and not smack in the middle. All right, so now I have thing. Now, what if I want it to look like this person? I would do the mouth, the tongue. Can't do the eyes. They're too linear. In fact, that looks weird. So sometimes this just doesn't go. I'll put the paw here. You know, like I'm saying, like you can spell it all out. Like you can put the whole character in here. There's the crown, but maybe it's too much. Maybe it's just too many things to fit in here. So we're gonna solidify. And we'll do this in the discussion board. Is I gotta break this down. What I gotta do, blue. Blue is the darkest of red and yellow. Primary triads are fabulous because you have 3 values. Yellow is the lightest value on the wheel, it's at the top. Blue is the darkest value in a triad, almost purple. It's closer to the bottom of the wheel. Red is a middle value, similar to green. It hovers in the middle. So by filling the negative space, again, you have a sense of composition. Really good, important start. I'm going to do some simplification here, and I got to think about where I'm putting yellow, because if I put yellow by itself, if there's pencil under there, it won't cover. So I have to erase underneath before I do yellow. If you put yellow and you cannot possibly erase what you did with pencil, add white. Keep adding white to the yellow. Another option is let it dry, paint white, let it dry, paint your color again. You don't want little colors happening like this. But this is what I want. Boom, boom, boom. Blue, blue, blue. Where I'm going to put red, 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 red. Clustering creates unity. It's called proximity. So really the goal of design is called proximity, which is overlap and connection of objects together. That creates an important moment of unity and rest of the eye. Off the edges, overlap, repetition of shapes, limited color system. It goes on and on, but I just wanted to show you another moment here where you can use your doodles and the images that you find to inspire your project. And you can even post, you know, what it was that kind of inspired that, and talk about what was wrong with the design you found, what you used from it, what you didn't use, and so on. I hope all this is helpful. I know a lot of people just want to hear it from all different ways, and that's cool. Better too much than not enough instruction.